Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today I'm going to make a video on is it bad to have your car idle and just sit here and idle. And so the first question you need to ask is it bad to drive your car? And the answer is yes. I mean, you're going to wear it out as you go over potholes and turn the steering, wear the tires out, and, you know, put wear on the engine. So that's what you kind of need to think of, is anytime the car's operating, it will be wearing it down. So in that respect, yes. But there's a few other things that I want to go over, some goods and some bads. Right now you can see it's really cold outside, the car's still frosted over. And so in this case, it's not that bad to let it sit there and idle for a minute to help it warm up, help the oil, as you know, the rating on it is for cold and hot. So once it warms up to its proper temperature, it's at the correct viscosity to properly lubricate. So until then, it's a little more thick, and so you want to be careful while the car's still cold. And the BMWs, if you've ever seen them, at least the M cars, on the tachometer it'll show you a certain level that you shouldn't rev the car past until it's warmed up. So that's kind of a good indication that you might want to wait until the car's warmed up to go hard on it as well. Something to think about is that at the idle speed here, 700, 800 RPM, the car's alternator is not at its full output. So when you're running headlights like this and the ignition system, the fuel system, all that, you're primarily using the battery and whatever the alternator is putting out. And just to have a story to go along with that, I had my grandfather once, we went hiking in Zion National Park, and we had a Lincoln Mark 8 and it had the keypad on the side of the door. So he locked the car all up with it still running, and we thought he was crazy and told him not to do it, but he locked the car and we walked away with it idling and came back about 4 hours later and it was still sitting there idling. But we got driving about 2 miles down the road and the car just died, and I was too young at the time to really know what had happened, if it was the plugs or if it was the battery or what it was, but needless to say it broke down. So I probably wouldn't leave it running that long. You know, as it is here, a few minutes before you're going to work probably isn't going to hurt anything. So also to remember, it's dangerous to leave the car idling if you're not in it. Somebody could steal it, it's already running. But anyway, something to remember is that the car is running, so the engine is being used. And some of the newer Chevrolet trucks actually have a time meter on them, so you can scroll through and see how long the engine's been operating and not just go off the mileage. So that's kind of funny. Another thing to mention is when it's cool outside like this, it's okay, the car's not going to struggle at all, but on a very hot day, if it's over 100 degrees, you have to think that there's no airflow going through the radiator, and so the car is not going to be cooled down because it relies on the airflow through the radiator to help keep the car cool. So like I said, on a cool day like this, it's probably not going to be a problem, and the water pump should keep up with any car as well, but just something to think about. You don't have that airflow going through. And if you've ever seen a car on a dyno, they have to put a fan in front of it because when they're running it hard, it can overheat, and that's what can be hard on the car. Another thought is there's less oil pressure. So, you know, granted the engine's not running very fast at all, so you don't really need a lot of oil pressure, but it's just something kind of to think about. But anyway, the main thing I would say is that you have the cylinders are not getting as hot as they're designed to run. So you have a lot of fuel that's detonating, and I think that it would foul the plugs more than anything, just to have low amounts of, you know, higher amounts of carbon buildup because the car's not getting hot enough to burn them all off the plugs. So I think the main thing that you'd have to worry about are the plugs and probably the battery from the alternator. So anyway, these are just a few things that I wanted to talk about for idling a car. You know, in dispatch, even though it was over diesel trucks, you know, we have the diesel trucks idle all throughout the night if their APU isn't working, and you know, that's a diesel engine, a little different story, but you know, then they're also driving the truck trucks a lot too. So it's kind of your own decision. I don't think it's detrimental for a car to sit and idle for a while. There's been calculations of, you know, do I turn the car off when I'm in a drive-through and I'm waiting? And I think they said if you're gonna, well, in fact, that brings up another point, is I rented a BMW when I was in Nashville, brand new one. And when I pulled up to check the car out, it turned off. And so I said, hey, I don't know what's up with this car. I think I need to return it. And they said, well, actually, it's, well, they didn't know either. They said, okay, here, just go get another one. And I went to put my foot back on the brake, and it started back up because it had the economy mode where it would turn off every time you came to a stop. And so you gotta wonder if that's you know, somebody behind a desk making a fuel economy decision, because that starter's gonna probably go out a lot faster than normal. But they've determined, at least BMW has determined, that it's better to turn the car off whenever you come to a stop at a stoplight. But then you're wearing more on the starter, so that's kind of another thought. But basically, if you're going to be sitting for a few minutes, then maybe it's a good idea to turn the car off. But you might not be saving that much fuel when you go to crank it back up again and start it.